Oh, hi, it's Mike again, reporting to you from Montgomery in Calgary, and specifically passing along an update on what's going on in Gnomeland of Montgomery. Now, if you haven't heard that term before, let me refer you down to the notes underneath this video where you'll find a link to something I posted a couple of weeks back, where I'd come home from being away for a couple of weeks, and the security camera on my garage showed a rather bizarre series of events that had unfolded within Gnomeland of Montgomery. There's also some stuff there that will explain a little more clearly what Gnomeland of Montgomery is and what it involves. It's really quite a magical, special place. So what we've got, and what I'm passing along to you right now, is an update. So it's talking about the strange events in Gnomeland of Montgomery, but in this case, it's about the restoration of the consequences of the earlier strange events. So let's jump right in. As I explained in the previous video, there was this anomalous event, this little flying saucer thing that crashed into a gnome home. And what I showed you in the last video was the kind of direct cleanup of that series of events. So go back and have a look at the previous video to see what that all involved. Where things were left at the end of my last report was here, where there'd clearly been a cleanup done of the events that had transpired, and these two little creatures showed up. It wasn't clear what they were doing, whether they were just keeping an eye on things or whether they were kind of the first step in a mitigation or restoration process. Now, clearly that was the case because, as you can see, about a week later, this appeared. Some work had been done, but was obscured by this burlap cover. Burlap cover was there for a little over a week. I thought that it was appropriate for us to be adding water to it regularly, because that's usually what one would do in a mitigation process. So we did that, and it just kind of sat there. It became clear, though, that grass was growing up through the burlap. And so, about a week later, really not surprised when the security camera started picking up some more activity. Specifically, these two guys turned up and started rolling up the burlap. Once they got it all rolled up and folded in half, this truck appeared. I think it was the same one that actually took the anomaly away in the previous video. These two little guys tried to get it loaded up into the truck, but clearly it was more than they could manage, and so, see in the next picture here, there was actually some help arriving in the form of a little gnome-operated front-end loader that got it all loaded up into the truck, and off the truck went with the burlap in it. The gnomes had a little chat about how things had gone, and then just when I thought they would likely head on their way with the work completed, the truck came back, and there was something in the back of the truck. A little hard to see what it is. Looked like maybe they decided to plant a little shrub or tree or something. But when I zoomed in with the security camera, it was clear there was something else going on here, because you can see this isn't a plain, ordinary tree. Nothing's plain or ordinary in Gnomeland anyway. But this tree clearly has, well, some character about it. In other words, it looks kind of like a miniature ant of some sort. Anyway, the ant got out, had a look around, then seemed to confer with the gnomes that were there that had loaded up the burlap. And this little bit seemed a little bit odd, but it's almost like they were aware of the security camera and decided to just pose for a little photo op. Maybe that's not what they were doing, but it certainly looked that way. And then the two gnomes wandered off. And what followed was what seemed to be a fairly close inspection of the site by the little ant, as you can see from these pictures here. And I'm not sure what the result of that was, except the ant seemed to have put out word for a couple of other creatures to come along and have a conversation with them about what needed to be done henceforward. So we got these little sort of bumblebee, ladybug kind of creatures. They also seemed to be interested in posing for a little security camera shot. And then the two new arrivals went their way. I guess they had their instructions for what they're supposed to do. And the ant took one more moment for a look around, paused for another photo op, and off they went. And so what remains is a much repaired section of lawn there. Needs a little bit of work yet, and I'm assuming that I'll have something to do with that. But it looks like the restoration is largely complete in a relatively short period of time. So again, another example of the kind of magic that goes on in the Gnomeland of Montgomery. Who knows what's going to happen next?